Hi, Jean.
I,
I had a question about the last lesson of Dark Night, where you talked about how beginners are first in meditative contemplation in a way, or meditate, and then God brings them into a contemplation. When you teach prayer of the heart in the School of Mary, are you then creating sort of a space by giving us the tools to practice it, that God can then intervene and make us contemplate? Because I feel like, I don't know, I'm speaking personally now, that I started to contemplate because of what you taught. Now then, instead of feeling that this naturally happened in a way, if I can say it like this, I'm not sure if I'm clear.
thank you. Your question, in fact, is extremely uh, technical, extremely necessary. Nobody asked me this question of, look, for how many years I'm teaching. 20, I don't know, 28 years of teaching. And I can also say that the same question could be asked for Lectio Divina. Because Lectio Divina, as we say in the School of Mary, normally leads to its specific contemplation, which is really being able to listen to the word of God. But if I play the devil advocate, I can say, but there must be some stages before that contemplative stage of Lectio Divina, where the person will be only capable of meditating, only, nothing more. Do you follow me? So the moving from meditation to contemplation as a stage of growth has two, for instance, it's just an example, but you can even take it for the rosary or other any other spiritual exercise or prayer. It has an implication for Lectio Divina and for prayer of the heart, not only for the prayer of the heart. So I'm reformulating your question. It's like, then, okay, when you teach us Lectio Divina and prayer of the heart, you seem to imply that automatically we will all receive contemplation. You seem to skip completely the possibility that any one of us would be either in Lectio or in the prayer of the heart in a stage, a meditative stage, and not contemplative stage. I'm using here, of course, meditative, as John of the Cross uses it, which is more the use of the general help with the mind, and that's it. No intervention from God. This is a question that, of course, I had to ask myself. Of course, you will never hear me talking about meditation. Never. Neither in Lectio Divina, nor in the prayer of the heart. So it's as if I act and behave as if meditation doesn't exist. I'm going with you. I'm going with the question. So why? Why am I doing this? I think there are two elements that should be underlined here, 2 or 3 elements that should be underlined. The first element is the following. I do believe personally that after conversion, second conversion, I'm not negating the existence of reflection in the life of a person. We do reflect. We do reflect even after many years, we do reflect. But for the specific type of prayer or way of prayer of Lectio Divina and prayer of the heart, I do believe that the person had already crossed from meditation to contemplation using the expression of St. John of the Cross. So the second conversion for me, which implies a new full commitment to follow Jesus, it can take years Teresa of Avila, it took her 17 to 20 years to reach that sort of full commitment of her heart, because she committed, she was a nun, etc., but something was lacking. And she discovers that part of her heart was given to these sort of non-harming at all, no sinful at all relationships with people, talking about God to other people, etc., which I say there's nothing wrong in that. So she discovers that, yeah, she wasn't giving herself totally. And she was already practicing the prayer of the heart, by the way, for around 15 years before her conversion. So it shows you that practicing prayer of the heart, you can still be in a meditative way, not reaching contemplation, because some mechanism in us is not functioning properly according to God's expectation, to Jesus' expectation. So that's very interesting here to study that. Did she receive graces of contemplation? Probably she did, but very, very, how do you say that? Say again?
Sporadically.
Sporadically, exactly, yeah, that's the word, thank you. So sporadically, yeah, she did receive graces, we know that. But systematically, as it happens after her second conversion, no, it was like a torrent, it's like an endless shower. So when I started to teach Solid Foundation many years ago, 1995, in my mind, people I had in front of me had crossed already that. I didn't have people just wondering, what shall I do with my life? I had people who had already met, in a way or another, Christ, and needed to know, what am I supposed to do in order to grow, to take off? So I never questioned that, even though it's possible that throughout the years, some people who have never crossed that line yet were involved in the teaching of the School of Mary. So it wasn't, maybe it wasn't adapted to their case. They needed to be more aware of the necessity of going through a second conversion, which is discovering the presence of Jesus, that he's calling them, that he wants to talk to them, the entrance of Jesus in their life, that he's here, not there, somewhere there in the clouds. So this is one point, and this is a fundamental point. So I take for granted that the person who will knock at the door of the School of Mary is a person who is led by God, not. This is why when we do the advertisement of the course in the School of Mary, we don't force it. We put it there, but we leave the grace of, and we put it difficult as it is. No, the first level course is 20 lessons, each lesson 2 hours, 40 hours. Who would go for such a course unless there is something? And this is the key. This is why I was always keen to have a certain presentation which looks very awkward, very, very primitive, very me, which is it's a prayerful time. This is Our Lady is this and that. This is like maybe too pious or made it a certain way. But in the back of my mind, that was the key. It's like I'm throwing the net, but I do not control who will come. It's only a person who would understand the language. It's a new language. Whenever you are touched by the grace of God, whenever you are touched by Jesus, you enter in a new world with a new language. And then you click to that language. Whenever you hear it, you say, you are attracted to it. Okay? But I don't negate the fact that before that, of course, you will need meditation. That's obvious. For both cases. For Lectio Divina, so it will be more meditation rather than as I describe it. Therefore, maybe this explains the efforts. For instance, I'm talking to Francesca or you also, or others who had the experience with other people, maybe who were struggling to take on board the Lectio as we teach it in the School of Mary, simply because there are other things to be fixed before. You see what I'm trying to say? Now, another technical point. So that's I hope I clear that. There is a technical point here. If a person, and this is very important in my eyes, and it touches on what I call the triggers of the grace of God. If a person had crossed that conversion time and moment in his or her life, I do believe that a proper training and teaching in Lectio Divina and the prayer of the heart require the knowledge of how to receive contemplation. I know it's very odd, very strange, because contemplation by definition is a free gift given by God, whenever he wants, the way he wants, whoever he wants. Yes and no. Yes and no. I can almost trigger the grace of God, in the case of the prayer of the heart, by offering myself. Outside of both, by the practice of charity, loving my neighbor, you attract huge numbers of graces, quality and number of graces. And also for Lectio Divina, there is a way to practice Lectio Divina, but we need to know it. So I think that this awareness of the triggers of the grace of God, in the case of Lectio Divina, in the case of the prayer of the heart, and in the case of daily life with the loving our brothers and sisters who are Jesus also. And the saints do mention this. I'm not bringing this from my own thing. Therese of the Child Jesus mentions it, Teresa of Avila mentions it, John of the Cross mentions it, Father Maria Eugène mentions it. The four of them say that it is possible almost like as if we are forcing God to give himself. So there is a secret to receive contemplation that is not, unfortunately, taught in the church. And this, I think, is one of the most important characteristics of the School of Mary. We are tapping into God's behavior. We're tapping into something very deep to understand that God has the desire to give himself, and he gives us the explanation through his doctors of the church, saints and doctors of the church, on how to receive him, how to deal with him. And these are the secrets of the saints. Teresa of Avila says it, said the humility attracts God. Father Maria Eugène says, the gift of oneself attracts God. Attracts, it's like St. John of the Cross, stanza 10, if I'm not wrong, says, by practicing the love of the neighbor, you are forcing God to give himself, as if you are forcing him to give himself more to you. Jesus himself in the gospel says, whoever keeps my commandments, the Father will love him, which means there is a new wave of love that you are triggering. But how to really trigger the contemplation of Lectio, how to understand that the act of purity, of giving everything and being ready to receive everything, this allows God to give himself. I was never taught that. I would have been taught the other way, saying you can't insist too much, because by insisting you annoy God. It's like that's not proper. You shouldn't be insisting this way. It's like a clock. What do you think? Can you force God? I'm not forcing God. I'm creating a space in myself because he wants to give himself. So this is a different understanding of God himself. So I would say then, for a person after the conversion, the risk is that he or she is not taught these secrets. So he or she continues again to go in circle back again. Between even the fourth and the third mansions, because the door is open. So you can't even go back completely to the third mansions, Teresa of Avila says. So from the supernatural action of God, contemplation, you can go back. Of course, at the beginning, an early contemplation, not the deep contemplation, and then you can go back. So this is another point here. And I think that's one of the main characteristics of the School of Mary. which is to unravel and show how you can, how we are not. I mean, to understand first and foremost God's heart, God's mind. He wants to give himself. He's not a moody God. I've already explained that tons of times before. He's not a moody God. But when we say God gives himself whenever he wants, to whom he wants, the way he wants, we are only saying half of the truth and not mentioning the other half of the truth. And by saying only half of the truth, which is theology of grace, the risk is what? Is to give the impression that God is a moody God, that God is unpredictable, that you don't know. He might give and he might not give. It's like a sadistic, no? You say sadistic? It's like he's a sadistic God. It's like, this morning I woke up fine, so I will give you. But tomorrow, no, I don't think I will give you, because that's enough. I won't give you more than that. While he taught us to ask for it. Give us this day our daily bread. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is Lectio Divina. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we need to add that God wants to give himself, and he taught us to ask, and he said, ask and you will be given. He didn't say ask and I will give it to whoever I want, the way I want, how I want. No, he didn't say that. He said, ask, you will be given. And the blind man, silently, he said to him, ask and I will give you. But he showed us how to ask. And that's the tragic thing, is that till today, we're not capable of guessing that there is a secret behind that. And then we can fly in spiritual life. We can take off. We are not taught that, because we are blocked completely by what? By that fear. He gives himself the way he wants, when he wants, how he wants. While in fact, that sentence alludes to the perception of grace, not the grace itself. This is another problem, another problem. So when you say he gives himself, blah, 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 no, this is the perception of grace. I'm not asking for the perception of grace. When I practice the prayer of the heart, I'm not asking to feel anything. I'm asking to be in his hands, under his action. I don't want to see anything because I can't see. And the Lectio Divina, I don't want to see anything. I just want to know his will. You see? So it's not a, you see, so yeah, anyway, so okay.
Yes, thank you. That's clear. Thank you very much.
Francesca, you wanted to say something, you see.
No, it was an avalanche of things. No, I have to think about this. It's set something in motion there, and I'm not sure about what to do, but I'll talk to you another time about it.
Yeah, it is a very complex. I addressed very complex issues on different levels. The question of conversion and its connection with from meditation to contemplation. Then after, the triggers of contemplation, and thereafter the final point, which means what are we asking for? Is it to feel or not to feel? Yeah, go ahead.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. So unfortunately,
and it's great for us if we know that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is vital.
Something to hang on to.
It is vital.
It makes our act of faith that much stronger, no?
Of course, this is why I push you all the time for Lectio and for the prayer of the heart, because I know that, because how many times we do practice Lectio, for instance, no? And then nothing happens. So how can you interpret that? Is it because God didn't want to give today, or there is something there? Of course, it can generate scruple, tiredness, and despair and other things. I understand that. That's part of the thing also. But first things first, he wants to talk. He wants to reveal his will. Maybe I'm not capable of seeing his will. I'm maybe too focused on certain things. It's important, Lectio, to open completely. I not to put conditions or expectations. We need to be completely open to be surprised. No, surprise me. Huh? You say to God, surprise me. So we think the consequence today, everywhere when you hear teaching about Lectio Divina, people will say, okay, you open, you meditate, you think about it, you reflect, you pray. But if he wants to talk to you, that's fine. If he doesn't, that's fine also. Just leave the book, leave the Bible there, and just stay in silence with him. That's the general advice given today everywhere to people who are supposed to be fervent, from people who are supposed to be fervent. But it
Very
implies a
unsatisfying.
lot of errors.
Hmm.
It bears in it lots of errors. First of all, are you practicing Lectio or prayer of the heart? The distinction doesn't exist. Well, I talked about it on the website.
Yeah.
There's three articles now on the issue. Second, when you practice Lectio, the fact that he doesn't talk is caused by what? We take it for granted that it is part of the game that he might not talk. It's unbelievable, especially if you talk to seminarians and you say that to them. It's like you tell them that it's possible that in their life, some days he will talk, some days he will not talk. So sort yourself, by yourself, alone. You find your own way, and it's good to stay in silence with him. That's fine. That's good. What's this? We abort Lectio and we move on to prayer of the heart. Second, the prayer of the heart itself. You sit there, and I'm talking here about certain groups that I know very well. You sit there in faith. There is no mention of the act of offering ourselves, which is very odd. Even Father Maria Jean himself, who some people quote him wrongly or not enough, he says you have to offer yourself from time to time throughout the hour. So offering myself is essential. The act of oblation of Saint Therese explains the prayer of the heart, the act of the prayer of the heart. This is not taught. Prayer of the heart is taught, stay in faith, in the presence of God. Staying in the presence of God is not staying inside of the heart, God's heart. The difference is huge. Being in front of Jesus is something, and being embraced and immersed in him is something different. We don't want to be just in presence of Jesus. I don't want that. I want to be taken by the fire of his heart. I want to be immersed in his being. That's a completely different deal. So people, the best people today, I'm not talking about lazy people, I'm talking about the best amongst the best today. What is taught is to be in the presence of God. So the prayer of the heart, you will spend it, sit, standing, kneeling, whatever, any position there, and in the presence of God, in faith. So you start, you do your short prayer, come Holy Spirit, and then you sit there as if you are sitting on a beach, expecting the sun automatically would work. I'm sure it will work for the majority because these are experienced people, but it's important that from time to time, one offers himself to God. Father Littell, who came, I remember one year coming back from a retreat, he preached to Carmelite Nuns, or I won't mention where. He was like in shock. He said to me, you know, he was my spiritual director, so we would talk sometimes. He said to me, they don't say to Jesus that they love him. They being the nuns, his sisters, no? They don't say to Jesus, he discovered that, no? Because when you preach a retreat, you have the amazing grace to receive whoever wants to talk to the preacher, no? Because it's an opportunity to open and ask some questions privately. So he gets to know some of them, if not all of them. And he discovers that they don't say to Jesus that they love him. For him to say to Jesus to love me is equivalent of what I say, no, to offer yourself to Jesus. He says they sit there too passively. It's too passive. So there is a key teaching here. I need to do something from time to time. I need to say my love to Jesus. I'm not supposed to feel it. I'm supposed to say it. I'm supposed to say it, not to feel it. I love you, Jesus. I'm here with you. I adhere to you. So he was shocked. Father Littell was shocked. It's like, they don't tell him. He was like, is it possible to spend an entire hour in the morning, an entire hour in the late afternoon, and never say anything to the Lord? He was like, it was like talking to him about aliens. The aliens invaded Earth. No, it's like, what is this? I never seen that. Poor him. So I'm showing you, for a man like him, who's a Carmelite, an amazing Carmelite, how alien it was to discover that other Carmelites, nuns, weren't doing anything during the prayer of the heart. Because this is what we are taught. You sit there in faith and that's it. You see? So you are negatively passive sometimes. I'm not saying always, because who is in the heart of the person? Anyway, I can go for hours.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.